looked at this. I've been awake for like no lie, probably like 10 hours. I
Oh my
haven't even
God.
looked at this slate. I haven't been able to build anything. So we'll make sure we're live first. Let me go ahead and update the description that you're here. But yeah, so I've just been super ill past 12 hours. That's why like the projections came out at 5 o'clock because I was just awake.
What
Um,
happened? You okay?
I've just had like the worst food poisoning in my life, like no lie.
Oh, that's the worst.
Uh, I've already, I pushed the show back because I hate going head to head with Run Pure. I find that disrespectful. I'd like to not be head to head with people. So I'm currently going to run stuff. I haven't been at my computer because I know some people do their stuff like on their mobile device and stuff. I just can never ever understand doing that. So I have no idea where my stuff wants to go. I have no idea what the builds look like. All I have is the projections done. That's the only info I have on the slate, in any regard. So we'll be doing this very much live here. Um, I will tackle the big elephant in the room with the tires and the different compounds and strategies. And I really believe that that is such an integral point or part of this race that we have absolutely no idea, no way to predict, no clue what the teams are going to do. Um, I don't even think we can consider that. When we look at the practice data with teams running different strategies, I mean, clearly they use both tires, but the trying to pour through that data and figure out who's good on a long or who's good on one tire, who's good on another tire. I think that's kind of a waste of time, with how much the track changed, with people switching tires at different points in that practice session. I think trying to look through that data for anything that would push you to certain people, I'm personally not doing that. I am absolutely just going to build off of people that should be running up front, because when we look at this race with the 8 sets of tires, 2 of the soft tires, um, and we look at a race to where we're going to pit once in stage and once in the middle of stage one, because typically Richmond goes green. If we have yellows, whatever, we're going to typically pit in the middle of stage one, at the end of stage one, in the middle of stage two, at the end of stage two, and then we're pitting at least once in stage three, if not 2 times for most teams. The fact that we're going to pretty much be doing even stints on all those tires, um, in my opinion, like nullifies the option tire that they have, because yes, it is slightly faster in the short run. But if everybody saves those tires for late in the race, and we have a yellow or whatever, late in this race, everybody's on the same tire. So that doesn't make a difference. If certain people get off sequence with that soft tire, because it's really like the primary way that soft tire works is if we get a yellow with like 35, 30, 25 laps left in the race. If we go any shorter, or if the run to the end is any shorter, I'm sure there'll be people that stay out or take 2 tires. And so those soft tires might not have enough time to go up through the field. If it's any longer of a stint from that, then the soft tire plateaus in terms of speed compared with the regular tire, and then it falls off a cliff. So if it's a long run at the end and your guy's on red tires, I mean, there's a real chance he gets past late in the race and loses positions and stuff. And so when I look at that whole aspect of this race, I'm not even putting a cent of time into trying to even predict what happens there. Um, and I'm trying to ramble as my
Brandon, you want to give me the 30, 45-second version of what you're talking about?
So yeah, so there's 2 tires in this race. First time ever in a NASCAR race that we're using 2 different compounds, similar to F1, although not as extreme in terms of different stuff. NASCAR is trying to make these races more exciting because Richmond's been boring, um, and so the practice session yesterday, teams were trying the 2 different types of tires, um, and each team only has 2 sets of the faster tires in this race, and so when they use it is more advantageous of who performs at whatever certain aspect of it. But even then, even the short version is like, okay, well, we have no idea what's going to happen there. It almost doesn't matter.
No, but that makes sense. I didn't know. I didn't realize what was going on. So they're trying out a new sets of tires. Everybody's got the same sets. So it's just a question of who's best suited to use them, I guess, if at all.
Yes.
Okay.
And at what point do you use them? Because ideally, for them to work, you need to be, almost similar to DFS, you need to be contrarian to when the field uses them. Because if everybody's using them at the same time, then it nullifies, their
Right.
advantage and stuff.
Okay.
Let me see. So,
How'd you do in trucks?
I have no idea what happened. I was out getting food poisoning on a date, so I have no idea what happened in trucks. I only
Okay.
had like 4 or 5 lineups cash in my 15, so I haven't even rewatched that.
No, because I remember I watched your podcast with what's his name, with Sterling. Is that his name? And I just find it not to stray too much, but I always find it's so inspiring when people are just so passionate about something. You know what I mean? So to hear everybody talk, about NASCAR and their knowledge of all the different, intricacies. I mean, I found it very interesting. For someone who doesn't really participate as much as other people do in that whole scene. Seems like there's, I forget who the other guy on there too. I mean, it just seems like everybody, all three of you guys, just really just were not flexing because you weren't doing it on purpose, but you just demonstrated such a knowledge of the sport and the intricacies of it. I myself found it very very inspiring. So
well, that's good. I'm glad you liked it. I was happy to join them. We're hoping to do that some more this year. So
and I ended up with too much Connor Jones, I think, as a result of that. But let's see what happens.
Oh yeah, well I know he ran into an issue or ran out of fuel or something.
Right,
He ran into an issue. Hayden, I guess, fell through the field.
Oh, did he really? Is that what happened? Okay, great. That's so funny.
I will admit, I am aware that Dean Thompson wrecked, and that's the first time I haven't played Dean Thompson all year. So,
dude, I think Kyle from the chat was the big winner. By the way, he said he won $8 in trucks. I think he was the big winner of the group. Actually,
yeah, there you go. So
right, so with respect to, okay, so let me ask a couple questions. So I ran projections. I actually pretty I did, oh, there you are, Sterling. I did I actually did a lot of work with the projections and the ownership today. I almost actually all done with them. And what I find interesting is that you have three, the three at least top rated guys, all high salaried and all starting in the top 5, and it you can't, 3 guys can't lead the race at the same time. Right? And one thing I do know about Richmond, again, that's the one race that I've been to in my life, is it's a little bowl or whatever. It's a little track, and you get the lead, man. It could be Oli and free. You know what I mean? Like it's tough. So to play to have 3 10K guys, all high owned, one less owned than the other, and all fighting for a lot of the same points. Listen, Stukas, and I've like gone back and forth about this like many times about, do you just like kind of trust the Sims to figure all that out for you, or should you be also intuitive and make rules to deal with that? Because if you play, in my opinion, you play like 2 of these guys together, for example, like Truex. I'm looking at Hamlin, Truex, and Bell as the examples of this. If you play 2 of those 3 together, don't you like need it to work out like one leads a shitload, then the other one leads a shitload. You can't have one guy lead it all, otherwise the other guy busts, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you? I guess that would be my first question to you. And then the second thing I noticed is that then you also have a couple of, of place differential guys. Like you have Chastain, who I imagine is going to be really popular. You have Chastain and Keselowski from the 20s, and they project really well. And they're sort of competing for the same points, but not exactly, So what do you think of the race? What do you think of what I said? I mean, I guess I'll start it off with that.
I'm gonna answer this in one direction and come back to that question. I
Okay.
want to bring up that I think the value range is super, super duper in play today. Like, and I think by the chaos that is going to happen in this race, regardless of who works up top, I think the way you approach this race is to double punt
Oh,
in
okay.
the 5K range.
Wow. All right.
And so if I'm looking at it like that, or even like Haley at 6K, but Stenhouse, Nemechek, Hemrick, Herbst, and Burton, these guys are all in play. And due to basically having the entire 5K range open, and I think you need two of them going up. And now I get back to your question of like the Bell, Hamlin, Tricks, because that's what's showing up in my stuff. Like on my
Right.
projections, those are the three like big favorites to win or at least lead laps and get stuff. I don't think, and this is just a gut feel, I'm probably not going to play. I'm not going to play three of them together, and I'm very curious or very interested on only focusing on one of them, and not even in a sense of if one leads a lot, it equals the other one not working. I don't know if those three individual drivers are even the best guys in this race. Like, yeah, sure, they qualified up front. They're the favorites going in. Trix and Hamlin are like, I'm assuming they're the favorites to win this race and get qualifying positions, everything like that. But with everybody who's going up through the field, like Keselowski, you mentioned Chastain as well, Kyle Larson at 15th. Like, I think Larson is a phenomenal play from starting 15th. When we look at where the ownership is looking at Hamlin, the ownership is on Truex. And this could just be me and, my contrarian just by default. Like, I don't think playing Larson over, Hamlin and Truex is like dead in the water right off the bat. I think it's very, very much in play. And so for me, I'm probably only going to play one of Hamlin, Truex, and Bell in each line today. That's my gut feel from looking at the ownerships and the projected lineups. Like, for example, like a Hamlin, Bell, Truex, Chastain line, that seems pretty chalky. And for good reason and stuff, or at least that's going to show up in some sims and show up as some higher projected lines. And I just don't really feel comfortable with that, with the ownership that these guys have projected. You have an in-game syndicate account, correct?
Yeah.
I've been very interested in listening to like how Utica and Nerdy have been talking about the sims related to ownership, and especially, I mean, now that I have like that knowledge, it's like, oh, that makes sense of why Hamlin's projected to be so high on today, why this ownership pushes so high up, and I'm more than happy to start leaning towards fading those higher owned guys just due to the fact that NASCAR is so volatile.
Yeah. I the conversation going on over there and the conversation going on in general, it's very interesting with respect to how to approach sims and how to approach ownership and things like that. And it's just kind of reminding me that it's still a very nascent industry. I don't mean like DFS is a nascent industry. I mean the intellectual industry, I guess, of figuring this out is very young. You have some takes and some math that honestly doesn't make sense to me, some takes that don't make sense to me, and some are very revealing, and it hasn't been resolved, and it won't be for a while, I think, of how to create field lineups, how to apply your builds to those field lineups, and how to predict what other people are going to do with respect to building field lineups, and things like that, and how correlation works or doesn't work within that, and how upside works. So I'm finding it interesting. I'm finding that there's a lot more people that do their own, not their own, but coding and things like that, with respect to how to figure this stuff out. And I think that we're really ways away figuring it out. Each time I feel as though I come up with something, I come up with something else that completely disrupts it and disputes it. So I'm finding that conversation in part tilting, in part very revealing. It's always revealing. I always like information. You know what I mean? I always like listening to some people who are smarter than me on when I say smarter than me, on certain aspects of things. And yeah, I hate to stray too much, but only since you brought it up. I still think that Stukas is kind of onto the right idea that you either trust the Sims or you don't. Like you can't have it both ways. You can't say these things are going to simulate the race and simulate the contest field and simulate the whatever, and then go ahead and make your own rules to go after it. But that's where I am today. I could be somewhere else on Thursday, as far as that goes. In any case, when I'm building these things first, it's interesting. I am getting like builds with these double punts, with these 5Ks going all the way, even some down to Herbst at 4,600 and Hemrick at 4,800. I mean, really getting down in there, the Nemechek, who you mentioned, even like I'm looking at one lineup right here where I have like a double punt of like Priest and LaJoy, so that makes me feel good that at least instinctively that's where you think is going to work. And it's not like I'm only getting one guy from that range. You know what I mean?
It's spread out. Like there's not a favorite at all. It's
like my highest owned of that whole group is probably Stenhouse, but even that's only like 16%. You know what I mean? Like I'm like everywhere in there, which is kind of what I like. So that we'll just kind of see how it turns out. But the guy I'm currently getting the most of, I'm currently in the most of Hamlin, but then like 65% of the Ross Chastain. Those are the top owned guys I have right now. But the Larson one, I'm getting, I guess, with the field on him. What is he going to be? 25%, something like that, or lower? You think?
I think it might be lower.
Lower.
So, when this seems to me as the most possible volatile slate of the entire year, and not in a wreck situation, but from a fantasy aspect, between all the pit cycles that we have to do, on top of all the green flag pit cycles that we have to do, where people will be short pitting, people will be running long, stealing fast laps, especially probably in the value range. Actually, like if you're in the back of the field, you have an incentive to run long, hoping a yellow comes out to try and gain track position to break up the field. For me, like when I like see that, I think that's just what I'm basing the probably being lower owned on Hamlin and Truex and even Bell to an extent. Just because I think this race is going to be crazy in terms of laps led and fast laps. I think we have a real chance to see like maybe possibly like 10 guys lead in this race. Now I'm not saying each of them are going to lead 20 laps, but I'm saying that, if you have 10 guys, 4 guys lead, 50, 40 laps, and then, or like you have 4 guys do that, and then you have 6 other guys who lead like 25, 30, 15 laps. Like that's still huge from a fantasy aspect. And especially if it's from people in the 9K range, like Blaney, Keselowski. Like Keselowski's going to do stuff to get place differential, Byron, even Chase Elliott, Reddick, Bowman. So going back to the double punt will probably force feed people or even projections to run, Hamlin and Truex together. Whereas I like double punting with like a much more balanced spread with the last 4 guys.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me getting this. Okay. I mean, if you want to try to go down the grid and you want to talk about this, I'm like just updating ownership right now.
Yeah. I mean, well, right off the bat here, I'll bring my stuff up. One thing I do like that I did do, like it's not showing anything, but just showing the ranking of value to just have an idea of where people kind of fall in line at and how close people are. I did this yesterday and I enjoyed it. So this is where I have everybody ranked at the moment in terms of their value aspect, and you see that the Herbst, Hemrick, Haley's, Stenhouse, Nemechek, I have a pretty high likelihood of being, in the top 20 of hitting, or the top 20 of being close to hitting value, or the highest value plays and stuff. And once you start looking at Hamlin, Truex, and Bell, like their projections, whether it's one number, a mean projection, whatever, like these three are the highest projected guys entering this race. And the fact that I really do think it's not only are they going to be cannibalizing each other, I only think one can work in this race. That's really going to be pushing me to, like, I think Keselowski's a great play. I think he's probably the safest play on the slate, actually. I'd probably prioritize him over Hamlin, over Truex and stuff. Build wise, even and even with other people starting up towards the front at a much cheaper price tag, like Barry, I think he's starting fourth, or somewhere in there. Elliott, like it really seems like, for me, like building balance, regardless if it's like Alex Bowman, Larson as like, starting 15th with slight place differential, or nailing like the cheaper guys who are in the top 10, because it seems to me like they have a very identical, or their like outcomes are very close, or their outcomes in this race are much more closer to what the top outcomes that Hamlin, Truex, and Bell can do on a normal basis. Whereas, like, I think Barry has a high likelihood of hitting that type of outcome today. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and so like this is just kind of visually looking at how I have people ranked and why I'm coming to the conclusion that I'm at. The people that I probably don't like, I mean, I'm probably not going to play Kyle Busch. I'm probably not going to play Suarez, Gregson, Logano, Wallace. These are probably the guys that I'm probably not going to get to today.
Here's Dave with a question. Says, as Kyle say, the winning in the $4 single entry had 310 gay guys, dude, like F off. Okay. Dave Wilson says, what are your thoughts on the guys in the top 10 that are not dominators? In other words, people that can finish well, but not from leading races. Is that even a thing? I mean, can that happen?
Well, when you look at, let me get this over. Like when you look at, the pricing that like Josh Berry has, and we look at what Berry has been doing at these tracks. Now I don't have it pulled up right now, but entering this week, honestly, Josh Berry has been performing very, very well in the tracks that I was grouping together for Richmond entering this race. And yet again, I'm not looking at the practice data. I'm not concerned about where these guys, what they're doing with tires or whatever. Like Josh Berry's starting third today at $7,800. He is a top 10 card at the tracks that I'm looking at, because he's like, that might seem shocking or stuff, compared to what he's done last year or at 1.5s, but this is where Berry has shown a drastic improvement this year. I think Berry starting third is very much in play, and I would not in a leading 900 laps in this race, but I would probably prefer playing Berry over playing Truex and over playing Hamlin, just because I think that with how crazy this race could be, the stupid strategies, people running long, I would just rather play the cheaper guys in the top 10 and, have Berry, fall to 7th or 8th and not completely kill my lineup. Whereas, Hamlin speeds on pit lane, Truex speeds on pit lane, and a 10K like that is like the basis, or like the cornerstone of your lineup being removed. Like, I think you can cash if Berry has a bad race today. That is not going to happen if Truex or Hamlin has a bad race. So Berry, Elliott, Busher are probably the more attractive plays in the top 10 for me today.
Let's see here. So I guess Chastain is going to be like the real. I mean, who's going to be the highest owned of all this stuff? Is it going to be Chastain, or is it going to be Hamlin, or
I
both?
think
I
it's
mean, or that combination, I guess.
I think it's Hamlin. So my gut feel would be Hamlin, Truex, Keselowski, then Chastain.
Yeah. I'm doing. Just so you guys know, I'm doing Min Uniques 3. I'm playing 50 lineups. I'm doing Min Uniques 3, and I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm going to share this.
Yeah, go ahead. I think this race is wide open. I
I
think
want to share this little technique that I picked up from SaberSim the last week, which I really should have done before, but hold on, let me just save this in here before I forget.
the metric.
When you have a build here, okay, so whatever it is, okay, and you're thinking of going min uniques, like more than one, just to kind of get diversified. What you're risking by doing that is simply getting like bad lineups, right? Like here, let's say here are my top 50. As a matter, let's just be more circumspect. Let's play 150. Okay. So here are my top 150. So if I said, you know what, this is way too concentrated for me, I want to get more combinations or more diversity within the lineups, I could go to min uniques 2, but that's going to risk, just getting lineups that are just not as good, right? So the question is, how bad can I get, right? Like what? So what they advise is this thing that you could do with I can't believe I never knew this, with SaberSim, where you could click this aggregate metrics thing, and you could set this thing where you put average projected score, and so this little number right here is your average projection of all of your lineups. So like right now it's like 231.55, and you can just keep an eye on this as you tweak whatever you tweak. So if you go from Min Uniques 1 up to Min Uniques 2, you will see it doesn't really do too much of it. And when you go from Min Uniques 2 to Min Uniques 3, you see it goes down by 5 points, right? So one thing that I like to do is go to Min Uniques until it dings me by like some number, and I'm at this point in the learning cycle, as I alluded to before, that I'm sort of making it up and doing it by feel. Like in baseball, maybe it's by 1 point. It's something. So that's something you could do if you're using SaberSim and you're trying to like tweak whatever you want to tweak. Remember, when you're tweaking, you're changing something, and then whenever you change something, you're giving something up. Like you're giving up your projection equity, sort of. So the question is, how much projection equity you're willing to give up. This is a little thing, a little test that you can keep an eye on for when you do make changes, like how it's affecting your overall build. So I figured I would at least share that share that with it. And again, who knows if it works? It makes sense to me. But again, go back to my comments about the learning curve for this whole thing. But that's something that I've been doing recently.
And at least just because I know you used to do it to where you go min uniques until like lineups weren't available or you run out. At least here you can, at least
quantify
for me,
it in some way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I guess you could goof around over the course of time with like a percentage like decrease.
Yeah.
To each sport to keep you within reason.
Yep. And I'm probably going to end up in the bigger binds. I'll probably end up hand building. Just kind of going with what I feel and based on what you say and what other people here say, and just make a couple of tweaks there. But I'll end up just kind of going with my normal processes in the 150. So, well, I don't play 150 like in the 50.
No, and like I said, I think this race is going to be way more chaotic than normal.
But can I tell you something? I mean, again, like we talk about our own biases and stuff. Like you are like Mr. Wreck. I mean, like you.
No, yeah. I mean, but like not even wreck. This is from like a total, just not even people wrecking out here. Just people flip flopping, and like this is a really hard race to project for.
Because of the tires.
Yeah, and the strategies in Richmond like can change as well with like if any caution comes out at any point, it's going to mess up people's strategies. There's a higher.
How did it go? Yes. Did they have the same thing with the tires yesterday with trucks or no?
No.
Okay.
They didn't. And when you look at like these short tracks, especially Richmond, like when we go to, you know, a bigger track like at Charlotte, they only pit like 4 to 5 times in the race. So the likelihood of, you know, a pit road issue, which ironically, Ty Majeski got one last night, and like, them pitting like 2 times or whatever. But the fact that we're expecting, 8, uh, and if people run out of tires, possibly 9 pit stops in this race, uh, you know, what is that like? You know, hundreds of times being down pit lane for the entire field. Even if there's a 1% amount of pit road penalties in some form or fashion, like that's still going to be a huge number of people affected by it. And it might not necessarily be the leaders, but there will be people whose days are lost on pit lane, and they're not wrecked out. They don't do anything. They just, speed or get off sequence, or something happens, and it completely messes up their strategy. Um,
So
so
what
that's
what are you saying here? Someone saying Hamlin, Kozlowski, Larson, McDowell, Haley. I mean, sure. I mean, again, like, sure, why not? Hamlin runs away with the ways. Larson could take the lead lane. Yeah, sure. And with that's why I always love NASCAR, because it reminds me of my harness racing days when I've been on harness racing all the time. You try to just figure out, like, from the beginning to end, like how the race is going to go.
Mhm.
6 is going to get the lead over the 1, then the 3 is going to quarter move, get ahead, pull pocket, and then they're going to line up like that around the track, and this guy's going to pull pocket. It's so easy, $37 exacta,
Mhm.
easy money, and then chaos happens.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, that's. But what I found is in short harness tracks, like, there's less chaos.
Mhm.
Then and that makes sense, right? Because similarly in I guess uh, in the long tracks, plate racing too. I mean, there's more. I guess there's make more chaos too. It's just kind of harder to pass people on short tracks. No.
Yeah, Daytona in 2 weeks, like that's a different type of volatility of,
Oh,
anybody
that's
cannot
in two
finish.
weeks, Daytona. Oh
Yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah. Whereas like here, it's more like not anybody can win, and you're not necessarily like trying to survive,
Right.
but I think the leader is going to change a lot more than what history has shown, just due to the nature of this race. And like what I would do, from like just speaking out loud, is I would probably burn the 2 red sets early in the race. I think
The
they're
red
actually,
sets are the good tires.
yeah, they're the
Yeah.
faster tires, but
Yeah.
like the faster for a short run, then they fall off. I think they're a detriment, honestly. Uh, their only course of action would be that example I gave. Like, if you want to gain spots, if the race is, getting close to the end, so you can be faster in the short term, but that's like the obvious way to use them. So everybody would be using that strategy. So like I don't think it makes a difference, because I don't see the expected leaders, Hamlin, Truex, Bell, or even people right up front, Tyler Reddick, the normie guys who are up there. I don't expect them to deviate off of the strategy that they're all doing together. I think they're all going to be in the same boat, because there's no reason to take an unnecessary risk of getting off sequence from the guys that you're racing against, like early in the race. Like, you just want to be with them and like control the race from up front. So there's no reason for them to be taking, those tires early and, get stupid or get different and stuff. So they all should have those tires late in the race. And yet again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything if everybody's there. If everybody's an engineer, nobody's an engineer. Um, Whereas, like, I would personally just burn those 2 tires early if I was like a backmarker team, gain track position early, and try and maintain that or get different later in the race to make sure I'm different from the leaders. That's why, like, I think all the 5K guys are in play, because they are already doing that in normal races. They already run long and get different from what the leaders are doing. And we've seen that work multiple times this year. Like, Hemrick runs long at Dover and everybody thinks he's a moron. And then yellow comes out and he's starting like 8th at the end of the race, to where he had like no business being up there. And we've seen that from the Spire cars, the Collie cars. The Rick Ware cars have just actually been like fast in terms of speed this year. Um, and so if all those teams are probably going to be being more aggressive on strategy, I think that really hurts the outcome that Hamlin, Truex, Bell, and all these front runners have, because they're directly competing in a contrary fashion to what the leaders are doing. And I think
Somebody asked a question earlier about playing a couple of top 10 guys that are not threatening to be dominators. And then we're also talking about double punting and stuff. So I guess I'll ask it kind of loaded question in this way. Where does Austin Dillon need to finish to at 5,600 starting from the 6 hole? You know what I mean? To make you not regret having played him.
I can answer that right now as I can goof around and find out. 4. It's looking like it's going to be 10th. 11th won't kill you because it'll be at like 28 points. 10th is value from Austin Dillon.
All right. Because I'm getting a little bit of that. So I figured I would just ask what we're after. So I'm figuring out, the more I do these things, kind of my role in these discussions. I'm trying to give like the overall kind of DFS look to and takes to NASCAR. And so I'm gonna answer someone's question the way I would want to answer when someone said something about leaving money on the table today. Okay, BVB said leaving more salary on the table than usual if not playing the top guys. Okay, so here is my overall view on leaving money on the table in general. And this occurs, listen, it'll obviously occur in a couple of weeks with Daytona, right? Mm-hmm. Where you leave like 20,000, whatever you want to leave on the table. The way I look at it is that if you're going to do anything with projections or anything at all, that you don't want to, in general, intentionally leave money on the table. Okay, you hope to, if you get to those lineups organically, okay, because of the projections or whatever, you shouldn't worry that if you leave money on the table, okay, but to intentionally leave money on the table, I think kind of defeats the purpose of it, unless you're trying to intentionally get lower own lineups. Okay, so like if you have lineups that are just going to be chalky, and especially let's say you have like chalky underdogs or chalky value plays at 5,600 or whatever, then what you could do is intentionally leave money on the table for no other reason than to just get your lineups more unique, right? And that's fine. But to intentionally leave money on the table because you think that it's going to be a shit show and you're not going to need the salary, I don't think that's the way to go. And it does happen in NASCAR more than other sports because of the nature of some of, maybe not a track like this, but maybe it is. But whenever you have those races that do rate to have a lot of, what's the analytical term? Shit happen, then you'll end up, these big place differential plays that whatever you could play and leave 20,000 on the table or whatever, as you might do at Daytona. But I would not, because you think a race is going to be volatile, intentionally leave it on the table. I would think that the combination of the projections and the sims will take care of that for you and give you, if they give you lineups, leave money on the table, be at peace with it. But I wouldn't pre-flop set rules like that. But that's just, again, there's no complete answer. There's no, if this business was solved, we wouldn't be doing this. That's my take on it.
So my answer to that is usually dictated by what ownership is going to be. And this isn't a situation where ownership even needs to be accurate to an extent. But like for this race, realistically, we're going to have 4 to 3 guys be like the main pillars of the contest, and then everybody else should like be in the low 20s and teens. So if I'm like not playing, Hamlin and Truex together, or Hamlin Bell or whatever, like if I'm not using 2 10K guys, then all my lineups will probably end up being in the $49,000 range, if not all 50,000. I'll just be using a completely different build to get there. I would probably not leave salary on the table purposely in this race either, but that's my justification for it.
Temming, if you think the tire thing is going to be a dud, why do you think there will be more chaos than the usual normal Richmond race?
So I think the tire, so this is from like a race standpoint, maybe not necessarily DFS question. From a race standpoint, I think the tire is not going to truly have an effect on the race, like in terms of what NASCAR's wanting in terms of like more passing or getting different and stuff. I think it's going to have a much bigger impact from teams that shouldn't be up front purposely trying to get different, because normally teams only have, like, if you're a mid-pack team, you really only have two ways to get different, and that's to run long on a green flag run, which people already do that at Richmond, and two, like, do you stay out or take two tires when a yellow comes out? Okay, the fact that there's like now a third option for those individual teams, and if they don't do that, it's kind of null. Like I said, I would personally burn the two tires early to get early track position and get different. If they don't want to do that, then whatever. um but the fact that we have the third aspect of teams purposely getting off sequence with the tires, because that will be important. Like, who cares what the leaders are doing? Like, somebody on like the second or third yellow will put the reds on before anybody else, and they're going to be significantly faster. And when I say that, like a tenth and a half, 2/10, which is still fast at Richmond, they're going to be faster than probably the 10 people in front of them for like 30-35 laps. So there's a real chance they accidentally scrape off some fast laps. They pass 8 to 9 cars and go from 25th to 17th. And if there's a yellow in there, then they've already baked in that track position and stuff. Because when you look at traditional Richmond races, it's like Hamlin running away with the race, Truex running away with the race. I would probably project this, like, the highest lap leader to maybe lead like 27% of this race, maybe 33, but I don't think it's going to be any more than that. So that's where I'm at, Astukas.
Okay, so I'm going to ask. No, I already have one of them. So someone is scaring me a little bit, because I do consider Philly a friend nowadays, just because he's been here a lot, and he's telling me that the friends don't let friends play Austin Dillon. So I have to either not play. I either have to replace him with somebody else that's under 58, that's 5,800 or below, or just kind of like renounce my friendship, I think, with Philly. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. Let me just kind of go through this a little bit. Like, again, like all these guys literally are going to look the same to me. Like, Nemechek looks fine. I mean, Stenhouse looks fine. LaJoy is probably going to be lower owned than all of them, but I guess for good reason. Yeah, whatever happened to him, LaJoy? Has he been not good this year?
He's just, I don't think he was ever good.
He's never good. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
very good.
That was
all right.
That was the secret. Some of us knew all along.
Yeah. Okay, very good.
But like, when I look at Dillon, I mean, my stuff, I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I have all these guys within like 5 points of each other, outside of Haley. Haley's like my clear highest projected guy, but he's 6K. But the 5K guys are all within like 5 projections of each other. Austin Dillon is my lowest projected guy, but he's still within 5 of everybody else.
Crap. Priest, I guess Nemechek is the safest from the 35 hole, I guess. I don't know. We'll see what I end up doing there. I haven't decided yet, because the rest of this one particular lineup is like so freaking chalky.
I mean, my favorite from that range is Hemrick.
And the good thing about that is that he's going to leave money on the table for me. Yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Okay, I'm going to go because I want to do like an MLB thing. So I'm going to let you finish over here. Good luck, everybody. Listen, I really appreciate the participation here. 84, 85 people. If I weren't here, it'd probably be 400. So I'm gonna bow out of this one, and I'm gonna fire up an MLB one in like a few minutes. But good luck.
Yeah, I'll end this in like a couple minutes for you.
Okay, later.
Yep. Good luck, Sheets. But yeah, so that's where I'm at today in terms of the volatility aspect, because I know, like, typically whenever I've said that, I'm like, oh, it's a wreck fest and stuff like that. I just can't imagine we don't have a lot of lap leaders. I don't think we have like close to any DNFs today. I really don't. Maybe like 2 or 3 DNF. I mean, if average will probably be like 6 or something at this track. But I don't think it's going to be a volatile race from a rec perspective, but I think it's going to be a very volatile race from a DFS perspective, from guys scoring super similar. Like if I remove Hamlin, let me just look at this really fast. If I remove Hamlin, Truex, and Bell from my projections, and you look at where people fall in line at that point, there are like straight up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 people, once the top 3 projected guys are removed, who are like at a 4-8 value, 4-9, 4-8 at least. And they're either hitting value or they're like all scoring like mid 40s and stuff. And that's anybody from like Alex Bowman to William Byron to Tyler Reddick to Michael McDowell. And so like if anything happens to Hamlin and Truex today, I think there's so many people who can score in the 50s. And so that's where I view it as a very volatile race, because I don't know who's going to be the main people to survive or be up there if Truex, Hamlin, and Bell like run into any issues, or not even run into issues, just lose the lead at some point. Like I've given fast laps to 28 cars in this race. I've given projected laps led to 23, 24. Now, granted, that could be anywhere from like 2 to 7 or whatever, but that's still, a lot of potential for laps led and fast lap guys in this race. And so that's where I view it as a very volatile race from a fantasy scoring perspective. And I think I am going to end it there so Sheets can go ahead and move, or Sheets can go ahead and do his show. But that's where I'm at. Sorry I got sick and did this so late. I typically like doing it like 10 a.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Eastern time. But that's where I'm at. So thank you guys for watching, and best of luck in this